I guess. And it's loading up. And well, I think we should be. I think we're live. Okay. So. Now, are we actually live, or is it waiting for us to hit live? No, we're live right now.
Even though the timer isn't going, we're live.
No, it's right here. Yeah, so that's up here. So if we go to our Twin Chickens account,
So are we still live?
I think we're live. I can't find my phone, so I can't log in to Twin Chickens. But oh, just found it.
It's oh yeah, we are live. That's just me staring down at my phone. Let's go.
I just want to hear what it sounds like.
Yeah, we are live.
Oh, it sounds.
It's just me. Would you be able to raise the camera, just like lift that up just a little bit, like the stand, pull from there? Yeah. Yeah, I think that might be okay.
Oh, it takes a
Cool
2-second delay.
Yeah, that looks good.
Sweet.
All right, so we I think we're now set.
This is pretty epic.
So,
All right, so philosophy chickens, man. I should have adjusted this way
Cool.
before.
Long times ago.
Yeah. Hopefully this doesn't blow anyone's ears. Can we edit this after?
Possibly.
Okay.
Probably not, but dude, it's pretty nice. But yeah, so today we decided to have a little conversation. Give us a little introduction about what your thoughts were about what you wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, so this is going to be our first episode of Philosophy Chickens. I'm just getting this. Sorry for the ruptured eardrums. All right, first ever Philosophy Chickens. Okay, so today is going to be our first episode, Philosophy Chickens. All right, we're good. So we're starting a new little section here called Philosophy Chickens, where we talk about very philosophical things in the world, such as today's topic. So today's topic is going to be a little bit different. So me and Evan usually have these very, how do I say, deep talks on our way to get food or on our way anywhere. Just as we're just walking and talking, we would talk about these very elaborate things. So today we're going to be talking about the existence of God. This is definitely going to be, we're not trying to hurt anyone's opinions on religion. We're not trying to, criticize someone's religion or whatever. We're just trying to talk about, have a little fun debate of the existence of God and why he exists, or why we think he exists. We're planning on doing this with my co-host Evan here. He's just checking out the chroma keys, making sure everything's good.
All right.
So yes, okay, finally we're ready to start. So I wanted to talk about, on our first episode of the Philosophy Chickens, why do you think God exists? We'll start with that question and we'll go from there.
At first I want to say it's it depends on where you stand on. I'm kind of I think it's very conceptual that I'm not sure there is just only one God. I almost don't believe that there's just one being.
Right.
Especially from a standpoint where there's at times where I feel like I've seen things in my life that
hint to there may be a God or whatever.
Yeah, or not even whether there is a God or more gods. To me, I think that there is a higher power or a higher beings.
Right.
But why does it have to be exclusively just one? Now, I guess it would be also how you define it. I could say God is kind of just a summary of everything that we can't see or don't understand yet.
That's interesting. I never thought about it that way.
Because I would say, like, you know what, I could go to church again or something and kind of just take all their concepts under my own pretense or thoughts that I think of it and derive it as, such as, like, let's say in a typical Christian form, God is referred to as a he, like a singular one person, human being. He's the three things. I can't think of it. The God, the Spirit, and the Holy Ghost.
Yeah, the body, spirit.
But yes, but a singular thing. Whereas, what if I perceived it as God is an entity or a community? What if God was a like more than, you know, it could be a collection of thing.
Other religions have multiple gods ruling over certain domains, you know. A lot of different religions have that, but ideally the way I see God is whether or not, you know, not to criticize anybody if you believe or not, if you believe in God or not, it's mainly just a fun little debate. But how I see it is that God is a father figure is the way I see it. There's like if you're, let's just say that you live in your parents' house and your dad is considered to be God, just for a funny little example. I imagine that, like, we set these constructs and these rules saying that the reason why we put God to exist is to say that, like, it's a moral construct for us. So, for example, if I'm going to say God wouldn't want you doing this, I always imagine it as maybe my father wouldn't want me doing this, or maybe this person, you know, this higher being wouldn't want me doing these things. So I see it as God being the father, as in, like, for example, like your dad wouldn't want you, like, let's see, burning down his house, for example.
Right.
Or, you know, doing something like immoral or whatever, like something that you would feel would be wrong. And I think that feeling comes to, like, your own central morality of why God exists. So I pose the question then, why does he exist? And for me, I think it's to put us to have a moral ground of where we sit between each other and society, I guess.
I would say the same thing. There's times where I've thought that people did truly believe they connected. I mean, to be honest, I did a couple years back smoked way too much weed once and thought I was God at one point.
Yeah.
I completely thought I was God. I was that high. But coming back from that, it really did open my eyes to really see kind of what other people have experienced, and even in other cultures, such as I really am fascinated by the, like, American Indian culture, where they you know, they believed in other gods and spirits, but they were really kind of engulfed in nature.
Oh, yeah.
And that's an interesting perspective. Like, what if from how you grew up or were raised, or from what you needed out of life, that's what you derived out of. How do I explain this? If we're in this society, you know, not to get into that whole topic again, but I need money, cornbread, and I don't know, a new gaming chair for my life here in the 21st century. And so I'm going to prey upon the chair gods and the god of coins, and, you know, this and that. But kind of expecting or seeing a different way around things just because where I am now. I guess that kind of derails a little bit of where we were going, but what are your thoughts about?
So I mainly put it as, like, for example, the reason why we're so diverse in our cultures and even in our nations here. We're definitely separated by like cities, obviously countries and continents, but throughout the world, you know, every place has an ideal of what a god is or what gods do. You know, there's a form to that society. There's a reason behind it. And I think part of it is like in the Christian standpoint, like you use it to teach what's it called, to better yourself and to better other people. You know, that is the extent of like in I guess to put it bluntly, like how a Christian would see the why they would indulge themselves into going to church. You know, it's to bring forth the word of God and give it to people. Whereas in other religions, you know, they would use it for, you know, I don't know, like if you want to have a good day, you know, you might pray for this other thing, or you know, or just even like how you devote yourself to that God will have an outcome on your life. You know, there's other religions to that. For me, when I was brought up, my mom, I was born Catholic. I was raised Christian, I guess, after. How does that work? I was born in a Catholic household, but then later
converted or grew up.
Grew up in a Christian thing, and I didn't really convert. Converting is such a it's such a funny topic for me, because like I just went to a different church. You know, I didn't really think about it as converting. This is just the church that like my Christian rock band was going to at the time. So I went to that church without even thinking about converting. It was just more of like, oh, I'm going here to play, you know. And normally when I would as I was growing up, my mom would like tell me, you should be afraid of God because of this. You should fear God and not do these things. You should never do this that God wouldn't want you to do. So she always put that fear in me that I should always act in place.
I guess it's interesting because I recognized the fear and was told that when you're referring to God, fear is different. The fear, like definition, is more of a respect, not an afraid standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I was put into you should be afraid. Like if you do this, then you're gonna go to hell. Like that was how my mom taught me. Now it's totally different. Bless you. Now it's like, you know, you should be grateful for the things you have, and you should praise God that He doesn't take things away. You know, like that's how she sees it. She's like, you should be grateful for this. You should be grateful for that you have these things. I'm like, I am grateful, but like, it's not like I'm not. You know, like it's regardless if whatever I believe in, whatever God I believe in, I'm grateful for whatever I have. You know what I mean? Like I'm never not grateful for what I don't have. Right. So whether or not God's in the picture or not, from where I see it, like I never saw it that way, that I have to devote my entire being for it. Is that?
And I find it fascinating with God's existence. Who's to say that He even partakes or is active, is currently controlling things? You know, everybody it seems to talk about God's will, but there's such a duality or hypocrisy with people, like somebody's in the hospital, like they, I don't know, cut their stomach open or something, and they survive. Oh, thank God, you know.
Yeah.
But the doctor who saved them, what? No. And then the next patient, the next day or whatever, cuts himself open and dies. Oh man, it's the doctor's fault. You know, it's not God's fault. Or, oh, it was God's plan, or it was God's will. Like, I've seen some hypocrisy there. Like, what's the deal with this? First of all, and second of all, who's to say that He may have created the world, but why does he doesn't even have to partake in it? He could just be observing it.
Well, you're talking about God as in the traditional sense of what the majority of the world believes it as, one singular being.
Right.
How you can praise, or you can instantly what's it called, turn your back on, or what's the better word for it? I forgot the word, but ridicule. You can instantly like praise or ridicule, depending on your circumstance. So in a society factor, yes, there's people, like I do this as well too. Like just like if I ever mess something up, like if I mess up a job where I thought I would mess up, and then I check it again, and it's like, oh, thank God I didn't do this. But I'm never thinking about like, thank my God. It's more of like, oh, that's awesome. Like I could replace the phrasing of thank God with literally, oh, sweet, oh, thank goodness. You know,
I think it's
because it's more that phrase is more arbitrary than anything, because I know that like if you really think about it, why would God think about this one singular event mattering so much to you as a person? You know what I mean? um, like someone all being like if I was like if you picture yourself as the almighty being, like yes, you would partake in every single event of every single person's life, you know. But why would one event matter so much? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But here's another interesting topic I thought about just now, actually. What if every individual person had their own, not angel per se, but what if they had their own god or their own their own deity that looked after them, or like that provided for them? You know what I mean?
And here's another concept. We each have our own gods, but in a sense, we are the gods. How do I mean this? It's our consciousness. It's from our consciousness we derive a morality or a sense of awakening. The fact that we can even think about these things or communicate beyond food, I need hungry. You know, like the fact that we've evolved so far. Who's to say that like animals, is it just a planet's god? I'm trying to phrase it like in the world could have one god, and all the people, is it just that world's god, or what about the gods in between? Like it could be the animals who don't have consciousness or maybe extreme awareness like we do. They're still affected by what we do or what a god could do if he partook in anything.
Well, the way I see it is that like everything has its point and purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you take us humans or just society as a collective and just remove them from the world, right? Everything still has a purpose. Like there's a reason for trees, there's a reason for a squirrel, there's a reason for it to be land. Yeah. So like for example, if you picture yourself as a Minecraft creator, I guess you're as you're playing God, like for example, you're making your own little world there, but as you're making it like your own little island, I guess you're building basically like a tree, but like this is more in a video game sense. You're not thinking about like what that tree is going to do for the atmosphere. You know what I mean? Like you're not omniscient to that. You're just putting it there for aesthetic reasons. So if you look at society that way, like there's a reason why we have all these constructs like available. So that's mainly what I was trying to get at is why do you think God exists, and for what purpose does he serve for us? If it's one god or many gods, I think it's easier to focus if there's one, because that's like
it's an easier mentality, I suppose. I'm definitely a fan of the like a multiple god theory, but but for ease of conversation and thought process, to drill down to kind of the main point that you had brought up, the purpose of God. Correct?
Yeah. Exactly that.
It's like I had mentioned before, I don't remember if it was already on the live session or when we were talking prior in the car, but we were bringing up the fact of morality, but what other, I'm still trying to collect my thoughts together, but what would you say are other elements of his purpose? Like it couldn't just be one purpose, or maybe it is.
Well, let's just pretend that like, okay, let's just assume that we live in a world where God put there was a being that made everything as it is today, but let's just say he's left. Like there's no, like he built the foundations for the world, and then we built upon it, and then now he's not here anymore. We would think about this topic of like how did the world come to be, right? Like how would things come to evolve to where we are today? Track our lineage back to, you can track it scientifically, or you can just just go back periodically of like how did we come to be, and how does light work? Why does the sky even turn blue? All that stuff. You can research it scientifically, or you can like think about it maybe even as something more metaphysical. But like if we were to conjure the fact of like, okay, let's just say God didn't exist. why is it still relevant to our society? Why does it matter for us? And the way I see it happening today is that people go to church, but I can't really say like what it could be either whatever religion you believe in, but what's the reason you go to church? What's the point of it? I used to go just because I was in a band. I was in the church band, so I would go, and I would learn all the when to take a knee, when to kneel down, the prayers and everything. But it never really applied to me because they were speaking in Spanish, and for me, at the time I couldn't really comprehend Spanish, even though that's my first language. I spoke more. I consider English to be my more natural language because I was able to comprehend that more because more people spoke English when I was growing up. So I wasn't really able to comprehend everything that the pastor was saying. Yeah. So I was just there because I'm like, oh, I can play guitar and you guys need a guitar player. So that's the reason I went to church. I see it as more of like my family members when they go to church. I ask them the same question, like, what's the point? A lot of my siblings, I asked them the same question. They're like, well, because I like going to church. I'm like, why do you like going to church? What is the real definition of why do you go? Because it honestly, you go there, but you're on your phone the entire time. And I feel like you're not understanding the reason why church exists. I feel like when I go to church, like besides when I'm not playing, it's usually to collect my thoughts and to like kind of make sense of the world around me. So like I said, like if the reason why God exists is to have these churches or to have these stationary positions where we can go to worship or maybe even collect our thoughts, I use it for a method of collecting my thoughts. It could be any church. I can go to any church. It's more of the ambiance that's there, the collective consciousness of people that when I go there, I'm there to collect my thoughts and try to make sense of everything that has happened up to that point because I get confused sometimes and people don't have the answers that I need. But when I go to church, I feel relaxed. I feel like, oh, wow, this is the reason why I'm here or whatever. And then, just work it out from there. But it's never to give praise or to, how do I say this? I don't want to be blasphemous, but it's more of like, it's never to, it's more for gaining more knowledge for myself. And I feel like when I go there, the knowledge is always like there for me, whether I want, because I'm looking for it. But I think the church could obviously, or might even be replaced for anything else. I could literally do this at home or underneath the bridge as I'm going home. I could it's a place of solidarity,
Right.
But I don't know, when you go, like, is there a reason why you go, or does your mom just bring you, or do you even go to church? Like,
I think the last times I've been to church was probably just for Christmases.
Right.
Or the Christmas service. Honestly, can't remember the last time I went to church for church. But if it was, from what I remember, church always feels, I guess I never really thought about it, and I like these talks to really, what is the reasoning for going? It was always just, oh, my mom's going, and she wants me to go, so I'll just go.
But that's what's kind of, I think, bad about it too, because you're bringing someone against, I mean, you're a kid. That's when you're a kid, it's like, yeah, you're going to go wherever your parents go, so whatever. But like as an adult, if your parents are like, you have to come to church with us, and let's just say you're older, like, you can choose not to go, but if you're going to go, then what's the reason for you actually going? Because I assume your mom's going for a reason, because she believes in whatever she's going to go for, whatever she's going to worship. But if you're just going to it to like maybe sleep for like, oh, I can catch up on sleep for like 2 hours when I go there. Did you actually have to go? What was the actual reasoning behind that? You know what I mean?
Right. And I like to think that church is kind of, or at least the way it always felt, was just learning about kind of the history, and it always felt like a rehash of the same like 10 stories.
Yeah.
But it was cool. Some pastors are definitely better than others on just actually questioning. Some of them were actually very philosophical, and I could lose myself into the stories and kind of try to think about different elements of not necessarily why he existed, but about the parables and about the lessons that you could learn. Sorry, I have a foot cramp.
Yeah. I mean, back in the old, if you take the Bible, for example, like usually when you go to church, and this is mainly going to be a Christian saying that we're talking about too, because, I'm not affiliated with any other religions. I just know of the one that I go to, but it's more for you guys to be thought-provoking, right? But taking it from a Christian or Catholic standpoint, the reason why, like we take the Bible for example. Usually, it's pretty or not merciful, but it's pretty like God doesn't take any mercy from people, or like doesn't show mercy from a lot of the stories. Like, usually, if you do something bad, He's gonna punish you by doing that bad.
It's kind of interesting. There's like a clear definition. Old Testament, there's no mercy. He's gonna murder everybody and wipe everybody out with the plague. New Testament, he's like, oh yeah, we forgive everybody. You know, just forgive your sins and all's good.
Yeah, but I think that comes down to like what was actually bad about the old ways versus like the New Testaments. It comes down to like why do we need to reflect on these? So when I was taking my my mythology class back in high school, we would talk about what obviously the collection of the Greek gods and how the pantheon like how they dwelled with society, because they would interact with society, right? Usually when you would do something bad, they would punish you and often kill you, because like they have that power that are they're gods, but a lot of the times when they would ask for a human to go do a task, they would be greatly rewarded or just given special things, but every single one of the stories from from mythology, some didn't have a point, but others more or less really drove the point home of like, don't do this because this is what this person went through, so you don't have to go through this. These tales of concern or whatever. On the Bible standpoint, it's more of like, I sometimes when I hear these stories, I don't understand what, maybe like I said, maybe because like it's the pastor speaking a different language than I'm used to, because he's speaking Spanish and I speak Spanish, but it's harder to comprehend for me. I don't understand what was the point of that, why did this happen? Other stories, from the Bible are more clear cut, like, oh, I get why this is happening. I understand this, but I feel like whenever I told my stepmom, who was like super into church, she works at a church at the moment, and so she's really like into it. So she goes like, every time she can. I ask her, like, whenever my siblings would be listening to like some very offensive music, I would ask her like, do you hear what they're listening to? And it's like, she's like, oh, it doesn't matter, they can listen to whatever they want. I'm like, are you sure? Like, do you think that this is, taking religion out of the way, do you think this is what's best for them, as children? I mean, they're gonna do it regardless, but like, what's to say that church is going to add any value to their lives if they don't really care what the outcome is, right? Well, they're children, they don't really get it, but that's more or less like, what's the point of it for a kid's sake? Why should God even exist for a kid? You know what I mean?
Right.
For adults, it's more of like, it's hope, it's the coming of a new life, a new reality where you can, if you do these certain things correctly, then you will go to a higher place, after death. So older, you're able to see that,
That's afterlife is a really interesting concept, and how different religions have different takes on it, such as in Christianity, or at least from I think it's a Baptist standpoint, you don't really have to do anything to just, as long as you're saved, you can go to heaven. And then was it Luther? Otherwise, I think Buddhist. This is like non-Christian. I think it's Buddhist, where if you do good deeds, and you work your way through, you can work your way up to becoming and live with Buddha, or the gods. Whereas if you do like terrible, like sinful type of things, right, you'll be degraded into another life, such as like a beetle, and you'll keep going down and down.
Right. So more of like the actions that you have in this life will affect the actions of the next life.
Right. I'm currently of the belief that there is no afterlife. Life is pretty much meaningless, other than finding your own purpose and making like things around you better than you found it.
Yeah. So I mean, like, life itself can be, but you're saying you can choose to be
but the
something.
fact that if God is real, and we're given a choice,
right?
And that's why I really like the I don't know what the painting is called, but the one where Adam and God are like almost touching.
Well, that's God giving life to Adam.
And what well, I suppose it could also be under is that how it was framed?
Yeah.
Or because I also read another thing where that's not I suppose there's different perspectives.
There's other perspectives
how you can take it to,
yeah.
but Adam has a choice. Whoever I read that whoever painted it was told to redo the entire fucking thing because Adam's finger was extended.
Oh, to go like
and to
cartoonish
to
level?
do it, not a cartoon, but so Adam's finger was bent down,
right?
So that Adam's finger and God's weren't touching,
right?
Merely for the fact that if you need, Adam made a choice, or you have there's the choice of extending your finger to be able to reach out to God. He never had to, but the fact that it wasn't there, he has a choice to be able to extend his finger. And there's
that's
like
interesting. I like that.
I'll have to find it and share it with you, but
yeah, I like those. I like those kind of things because like I'm very open. Like I'm very neutral to almost everything, and that's why it's hard to talk about these kind of things with other people because usually you can start a fray very quickly. You can definitely offend someone, and we're not here to offend anybody. We're just mainly like asking the question: if you go to church, like what are you going for? Is it just to hang out with friends? Do you feel like you're receiving what's it called, a blessing every time you go? Like, do you feel like you come out of it like a different person? Like, do you feel that it's actually changing you as a person? Whatever your religion is, like I just feel like a lot of people just go because they just go. It's Sunday, we have to go. But it's like I feel like there's not that much what's called consciousness out there of like, why am I actually going? Like, what's the reason? And if you're gonna go, then obviously, yeah, if it's for you, if this is something that you want to do, then go for it. But I feel like a lot of people don't pose that question when they actually go to do something. They don't really pose the question of why am I actually here? For example, I have one of these things where if I don't have to be anywhere that I don't want to be, I don't have to be there. And a lot of people don't have that consciousness. When I was a kid, I used to just do terrible things. I used to go to terrible I was a kid and I was going to like adult parties and literally thinking like, I'm here. Why am I here? Why can't I leave? And it's like I made the conscious effort to go there, but I was a dumb kid. But like later I'm like, I would never do that again, but I don't know why I decided to go here. Like maybe a friend invited me, or maybe for whatever reason, these are people that I've only met for like an hour, and I'm a kid. You know what I mean? This is like the weirdest thing. I mean, they weren't like 27 or whatever. They were like 15 years old. I was like 8 at the time. Right. I was like, why am I even here? You know what I mean? So as an adult, I'm like, okay, if I don't have to be somewhere, then if there's no place that I need to be at, why am I here? Even like if I go to one of my dad's soccer games, I'm there to see him play, but after the game's done, everyone stays for like 8 hours there, or 4 hours, whatever, after the game. And I'm like, well, I just came to see you play, and I think that's it, so I'm going to go. I have no other reason to be here. Right. So I leave. I make that conscious effort. And I feel like a lot of people just don't have anything to kind of, make that conscious effort to do that. Because when I decide to leave, it's usually because like, oh, I want to go do something else, like watch a movie, play guitar, or whatever. I make that conscious effort, but I don't feel like a lot of people do. They just kind of are. They just are somewhere, just because they have nowhere else to be. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a routine thing, not because their lives are miserable, but it's more of a routine.
Yeah, and it's interesting how some people can get wrapped up in not only just church activities that relates to anything, but there's somebody that I grew up knowing, well, a family actually, but specifically one guy that all his life is church. It's like wake up, 5 to 7 days a week. It's all about being at church, going to church, helping the church, and it, it's good for him, but it's so habitual. It's like from this time to this time, from this time to this time. It's almost sad to see that if God has given you this life and good. I'm glad that you want to give praise back to him, but wouldn't he want you to live more of a life?
Well,
but then that's also your own perspective or his own perspective of how you live a life.
Yeah, I mean, like, usually in a religion standpoint, and it's just in anything general, how I handle things is like, if there's something that gives you comfort or like something you want to do, I have no right to take that away from someone.
Exactly.
No one should ever have the right to tell me that I can't play guitar or I can't drive somewhere or I can't do this or that. Like, no one has the right to do that. Usually that's where I like grow in anger. It's just like, you can't control me. Like, I'm not a serial killer, but I'm able to do whatever I want because I can. I'm not gonna blow up a building or anything like that. I just want to go home or I want to go see a movie. No one should ever have
free will.
Yeah, and no one should ever take that away from you. So whenever somebody does, questions something, like for example, one time I started switching over to non-sugary drinks, and I was with my dad and a couple coworkers, and they were like, and the coworkers were like, "Hey, we're drinking." I'm like, "Oh, this is a new what's it called, non-sugary drink. I just I wanted to try it out, see if it works." And then my dad just like, "Why? That's not. You're gonna die the same way. So what's the point in doing that?" So I'm like, "Why would you say that to me? Like, I believe in this thing so much that I bought it. Why would you take this away from me? You know what I mean? Like, why? What gives you the right to do that?" Now, my dad didn't mean anything by it, obviously. He was just more of like, it's just more of bitter batter chat that we just go through. So I didn't immediately like throw the can in his face, but it was more of the fact of like, it got me to think like, if I chose to act on that moment, I could, but I don't, because I'm not a bad person. At least I know that I'm not. I'm able to understand that like, oh, this is what he meant by that. So I'm not, I'm not taking offense to it as much as I could have. I still took offense to it because I'm like, this is something I believe in. Why would you question, or why would you even devalue something that I believe in? Like, why would you do that? But that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of people don't understand that kind of moral reflection of like, if this is something you believe in, it doesn't matter if it's religion or whatever. You're able to understand that this is something that if someone believes in it, you don't have a right to take it away. I mean, we can always question of like, is that something right for you to do? For example, like with Gilbert, right? Him smoking is pretty bad. Like to a point of like, he only does it as a substitute for something, Which
is actually good for him. He quit a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And has been clean, but
no, which is great. But it's the thing of like, back then it's like a cigarette to him was the addiction, but it was just a substitute for something missing in his life. But it was more of like, how do you fill that void again? Like, I don't have a right, if this is something that gives him, I wish he wouldn't do it, but it's more of like, this is something that he wants to do. I can question it, but I can't take it away from him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because
it's his choice still.
Yeah, it's still his choice. That's why in a lot of movies, whenever what's it called?
Like an intervention.
Yeah, well, whenever a character or whatever, whenever two people are together and like one of the characters dies in like one of these action movies or whatever, and I can't think of a movie, but the main thing is like one of the characters is like, he died because of me. Like, it was all my fault. I'm like, no. It was his actions that led to his death. So you don't, it's a way to cope with it, right? And that's why like movie shows us how to cope with death and how to make sense of reality for it. I can't think of many movies like that, but
because that's why movies, I feel like, I don't watch many, but they are very good. You get to, because we're creatures of observance, that we watch and learn from seeing others do.
Oh yeah.
That just like you said. Being able to see others or learning how to cope or do other things is a great way to be able to reflect in your own life, is what I meant. Yeah. But continue.
Well, one of the last things was like, okay, like I was talking in Cara about The Exorcist, right? So the movie The Exorcist is renowned to be one of the scariest horror movies out there, right? But I don't see it like that. Like when I was a kid, yeah, obviously. It was disturbing. It was horrific. It gave me nightmares. And even like in our household, it's more like you shouldn't watch these these horror movies around certain hours because that gets you closer to opening gates for the devil or whatever. We can go through more of the demonology later, but the more important thing is like you shouldn't watch these movies at a certain time because it's just not good for anyone. Like it's bad. So there was a time where me and my cousins watched it, and it was the first time where I watched the full movie front to back. It was in my living room back when I used to live in a trailer. It was all my cousins. We were just watching the movie, and obviously it was the first time I watched it where I wasn't afraid, but I was more interested in what the story was. And if you actually watch the movie, it's more of like an expression of faith. It's probably the strongest faith movie I've ever known because it's about a preacher that has lost his faith and is questioning his faith. And then it comes to be, you're following his turmoil of like, what does he believe in and why does he lose faith in God and all this stuff. And that's one storyline, and then the other storyline is the girl that gets possessed and is later now, is taken possession by a demon, where the family member doesn't know what to do, so they call an exorcist over, one of the preachers, and how this works is that the preachers come in pairs, so one of them is like has been a father for so long, and he's very devoted to his craft. Like, they know what they're doing, but the other one doesn't have any faith. So throughout the movie, you get to see how one preacher that is devoted to God gets his faith questioned and loses himself to the demon. There's a shot later where, spoiler alert, I guess, where one of the preacher that has I guess done this for a while has died, and the other preacher, that one that doesn't have any faith, is just now in the room alone with the girl that's possessed, and he does the ultimate thing where it's like as he's questioning his faith, he comes to the realization of how he can save this girl, and he does the ultimate sacrifice of taking in the demon, and basically he throws himself off a staircase and then he dies that way, basically making the ultimate sacrifice of like, if I'm gonna help this girl, I'm going to do it this way. And that's what he believed in, and ultimately his belief in what he believed in with God is what led him to that outcome. So I highly recommend, if that's something that you guys like, it's definitely like a very horrific movie. It has like demonic images and everything. And it's more of the icon things that like maybe that make it seem very demonic. But like if you really follow the fathers, the Lost Fathers, I guess, storyline, it's actually very strong and profound questioning of faith. So that's a movie recommendation for you. It's a very good movie. It's like 10 out of 10. It's amazing.
So then to tie it back with personal belief versus, I guess, worldly belief, everybody has their own perspective. Or I guess choice of what to believe in. Yeah. And
no one should ever have the right to take that away from you. Like no matter what you believe in,
And so I guess it's kind of interesting what people take for proof of God. Do you also the question of, do you even need proof to believe?
Well, yeah. Back in the day, like I really like the idea of taking the Jesus character, right? Like Jesus himself as a character. Back in the day, there was a couple movies that like kind of hinted at this, where it's like if you were pick yourself back in like Jerusalem, or Israel, or wherever it took place, where Jesus was walking the earth, and then you came across a man, dressed like Jesus, and you wouldn't think anything of it. You think it's just a random person, but he would come up to you and just ask you these things about your life, and just really get to what your problem is, like almost like he's very like psychic, but at the time you're like, what is happening? Like, how do you know these things? And later he doesn't say I'm God or I'm Jesus. He just says I am, like that's how, and sometimes he doesn't even say that. It's more of like your connection with the Jesus character, I guess. The what's it called, the personification of God is just taken as like mind blowing that someone like that exists right here in front of my face. I would lose my mind if a Jesus character ever came here, um, and like said like these things, like things that only I would know, but like would tell me you're on the wrong path and you're doing this wrong. You shouldn't be doing these things, and it's not about like the way he says it, but it's the way that I would know, you know, that he was the second coming or whatever.
Yeah, and that just you saying that kind of not personification, but the personalization of it, how you would recognize it.
You would just know it's this divine thing.
Reminds me of like kind of a classic movie references where you have a good and a bad angel. Like you mentioned earlier, that what if everybody had their own personal angel? And then I mentioned that like what if it's kind of all in your head? So in like cartoons, you kind of see that sometimes people, when they're trying to make a decision or have a hard choice, they'll have two angels pop up on their shoulders, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not sure where I was going with that, but it reminded me of that.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is like, I guess where I wanted to take that with was the existence of God today. You take everything that happened throughout the coronavirus. She just got flagged. You take everything that happened throughout this pandemic, I guess, throughout 2020, and you put it into perspective. If God existed today, what is the reasoning behind this? Was there a goal behind it? And if not, was he just a construct of us just trying to understand something bigger than us? Is he just something that we made up or whatever? Do you believe that he even plays into an existence today of what's going on? And does it even affect anything that's going to happen in the future? If you believe God exists, does anything relevant? Is that even relevant to what's happening today?
The only thing that makes me sad about that is that there's almost no... It depends on, I suppose, what you would categorize it as, but I maybe personally would say that you can't really prove that right now. Well, others could be like, there's miracles that happen every day, so that's obviously proof of God, or his work or his things that he's making happen.
Right.
But if through 2020 that if he's partaking in it, or his existence of doing, what would you say your take on the question? So from all the questions that have been aroused from his existence, I guess for me it just drills back to, I guess I don't need proof, but wouldn't it be nice to have proof that he or something exists?
I mean, I think that mainly derives in like, do you really need it? Like some people, they go to church because they feel like they're closer to God, and that's the way that they believe that he exists.
But I suppose maybe I should take a step back. What if, I guess right now I could have just had an epiphany that, wow, just my existence is proof that God exists. Like the fact that I'm able to think about it is that his work is already done. The fact that I'm here, I'm already...
I think that's more or less the bigger understanding.
He's the creator. He doesn't have to... I guess maybe to follow my train of thought, or the craziness that's going through my head, is God could just be a craftsman. He was always personified as a woodsworkman, or Joseph was, and then so Jesus became it. But anyways, he's a creator. He makes let's say he makes a car, or crafts like a wooden little toy model.
Yeah.
He made it, but he doesn't have to play with it. He made it and put it over there, and now a kid can play with it. So in retrospect, or to our like existence, let's say he created the world in 7 days, but he doesn't have to intermix and mingle and do anything with the people and the beings on there, other than Jesus and stuff later. But just to say, he could create it, but he doesn't necessarily have to do anything with it.
I like that the mindset, but to further add on to that, I think that when he, like, let's just say, like, he just made this just for funsies, right? Because he can, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that when we get out of line or whenever we're getting steered off course, I think at that point he made Jesus as the metaphysical, like the physical lightning rod of our course correction to question our morality from there, so that we could go on the thing.
I guess for my own,
because we're still talking about it today, you know.
For my own personal connection, or for like what you're saying, it would be like God to us is like us having a dog. Like, cool, we have a dog. He's in the house, and he can do whatever he wants. He has free will.
Yeah.
But when he gets in the garbage, you scold him, or
when he pees on the carpet, all that stuff for sure.
Yeah. So then correcting when it's wrong, or like sending Jesus to pay for our sins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he didn't necessarily have to. Sorry, I was gonna take it a completely different route that I don't want to. But regardless, he can go in and out, but he doesn't have to do everything. What I'm saying is, I suppose, if God's will is God's will, he doesn't have to partake in everything. He can, or could, or will, maybe, but not every action of every human being could be tampered with.
Yeah,
is what I mean.
I like to think of it as like the movie Dogma. This is another great movie. It's actually free on YouTube because of the licensing things. But this movie is directed by Kevin Smith, who's just the nerdiest, geekiest dude ever. Directs fantastic movies. But the movie Dogma is a very, thought-provoking movie that has more concept than story in it. But the concept of the voice of God is actually its own character, his own thing. So the voice of God comes down to one of the protagonists and tells her that, hey, you are gonna hold the second coming of God or of Jesus in your stomach. Like it's a modern day Mary, the Virgin Mary story,
mm-hmm.
As Dogma. So it's like it's crazy that like.
Sorry, I was just thinking about how I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
I'll ramble later.
Yeah, so it's a modern day story of that. I mean, it was shot back in like the 2000s, but it's very thought provoking how there's a scene where he's telling her like, hey, I'm sorry that I have to tell you this, but this is what your role is now, whether you like it or not. This is what you have to do. So, and then he tells the story of like, hey, I had to do the same thing with Jesus when he was a kid, and he didn't take it well either. Like, could you imagine being a normal person, a normal kid going about your life, and then the voice of God just comes down to you and says, hey, you're going to be the savior of humanity, and one day you're going to have to die for them. Could you imagine how earth-shattering your world would be as a kid being told those things? And then as an adult growing to I love the story of Jesus itself. I don't like how people are like, I don't like the way that some people like tell it, but I like the way that the concept is laid out of how you're a normal kid. Your mother probably won't tell you that like you're Jesus or whatever. She'll treat you special for sure, and she'll do like she gets told that she's gonna hold the savior of the world in her stomach, which is a huge thing. But then as when the kid's born, she'll do everything she can to protect the kid. I've always wanted to make a movie about this. At least a lot of people like try to do like Jesus Christ Superstar or something like that, where it's like a musical kind of adaptation of Jesus's life. But I've always wanted to take that story of him as a kid. One of the biggest turning points is him being told by the voice of God that he is going to be the savior of humanity and he's going to die one day for them. And then the end of the movie, him accepting that, him accepting his destiny and actually going through what's going to be the ending of the movie is having the 12 apostles thing.
You're able to see him grow up or in different time segments of.
I mean, it'll be his life from childhood to adult,
and going through like denial and all these.
Yeah, because it's something. Really, it's things that we all go through. I feel like Jesus is more humanized or is more human. Than anyone. Mm-hmm. Like he is the set example, but people, what's it called? people over glorify for, how do I say this? Do you think that Jesus is like the biggest thing in the world, but it's more of like he is. You could see it that way, but the way I see it,
human.
He's the human of humans. Like you should take it as the example of something we can achieve, not something mythical. You know, it's something that we can achieve, that we should strive to be. You know?
And I do like that aspect, reflecting on, I think somewhere recently, I don't remember where, but the fact that you mentioned that he's a human's human, or you know, he's what we want to achieve. The fact that I often don't think about, or haven't thought about, he was definitely tempted and had temptations to do stuff, but you know, like he could have been God's or whatever, just like ignored it, but he was definitely like whatever urges or any, I can't think of an example right now, but to do something or tempted by something similar, like the devil's fruit or the apple, you know, something, he could have been tempted to do such things, but him just, I guess, being him, he knew or was able to make a wiser choice.
But I think it's more of the fact of like, when you know you're different, and then you get told you are, you know, the world, it's earth shattering, but at the same time it's eye opening, because it's like when you're told that, like going back to the Jesus thing, when you're told that you're gonna be the savior of it, as a kid you're like, I knew something was different about me, and things could never be the same again, but now I can see everything as it's meant to be seen, and I'm not afraid anymore. You know what I mean? Like being able to understand human thoughts or human interactions more than anybody else, and just being able to hear the voice of God in your head, which is another thing entirely. Like that would freak you out as a kid. So I like the idea that like we hear our own things too. You know, we indulge in our own temptations or whatever, but like it's more the fact of like how we choose to act on those things is what defines us as ultimately the person in today's world. I had another thought of like a long time ago, that I see the same people almost everywhere I go. Like the same person exists, like the same person that is in a soccer field when I went to go see my dad. There's that same personality and traits and I guess style also exists somewhere else, you know. They're two different, completely different people, but like in terms of like what's it called, I guess speech or whatever, but it's their similarities that like they are, this person wears this and does this, and there's someone else exactly like them on the other side, but is a little different, just a little bit different, but you can tell they're like, oh, these are very close to be the same person.
Yeah, if you're
like through generations, like I could see something like that, you know what I mean?
And if I'm 1 in a million, that means there's a couple thousand people on this planet that are just like me.
Yeah. Tons. That's the way I see it. I always see it like that. Anyway, good topics. I just wanted to
that was
test this out and see how this went.
That was a perfect time too.
Oh, this is good. This is really good.
Cool.
Let us know, for the 2 people watching, what you thought about our philosophy talk. This is gonna be, we're gonna try to do this try to make this a regular thing. Probably 15 minutes or 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a good time length. Thank you for watching. Let us know what you thought about it. And
hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you later.
Adios. Let me see if I can time this. Nope.
Hit the little red button or something.
There we go.
And then hit the stops.